In this video, I'm explaining to you how you can get cash flow and equity growth from property that you don't even own. That means you don't need to get mortgages, you don't need big deposits, and you can massively increase the cash flow you're getting very, very quickly. So my name's Simon Zutshi, and this is actually video number 2 in a brand new video series of 3 videos I've created to help you be a more successful investor. If you've not watched video number 1, which is where I explain the powerful investment tool that 99% of investors are completely unaware of, I encourage you to watch that video first. And thank you, by the way, to all the people who put comments and ask questions. I'm going to answer some of those questions in this video, and there'll be an opportunity, again, if you leave comment at the end of this video, and I'll use that to answer those questions in the following video for you as well. So there's going to be another third video, which can be all about how you can use this powerful information to get a real competitive advantage. So who am I? Well, as I said, I'm Simon Zutshi. I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon #1 property bestseller. We sold over 100,000 copies. I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network, PIN, which is the largest networking organization for investors in the UK. It's the original one, founded in 2003, the largest and longest running. And I've been investing in property since 1995, and that's 26 years I've been investing. And I actually discovered what I talk about in video number 1, which is purchase options and purchase lease options. I discovered them very much by mistake. Just to give you a quick recap, a purchase option is where you get the opportunity to buy an asset at some time in the future, but you fix the price today. So it gives you time if you want to get planning permission, or maybe it's a deal you're selling to someone else, or you want to fix the property up before you buy it to add value. It gives you time to do that. And then a purchase lease option is the same as a purchase option, but also there's the element of lease, which means you hire it. So you pay a monthly fee to the owner, then you get to use the asset. And I'm going to talk about some of the ways that people are using that and how they're making money to really inspire you, to show you exactly how you can do it in this particular video. So as an experienced investor, maybe you've heard about purchase options, purchase lease options, maybe you've even done some. I would suggest if you've not actually done any yet, you probably don't know enough about them, because if you did, you would have done one. So I'd really encourage you to have an open mind. You might have been investing a very long time, and I meet people who've never heard about these things. Because as I said in video number 1, 99% of investors have never heard of them. Or if they have, they've got a misconception about what they are and how they can be used. And actually they're very, very broad and wide, but they only work in certain circumstances. Now in this particular video, I want to talk about how you can actually find people who might be open to doing a purchase option or purchase lease option for you. And sometimes when investors learn about this, they think, well, this sounds great for me as an investor. Why on earth would someone agree to give me the right to buy their property in the future and fix the price now? So the first thing we need to do to help you find these people is to get you to imagine you're in their shoes. Imagine you are this person. You've got a property which you just don't want anymore. You want to get rid of it. You want to sell the property. So we're looking for people who want to sell a property. Remember in video 1, I explained there were 2 groups of people who want to sell property. The biggest group are people who are selling a property because they want to access money now. Those people, generally, we can't help them. We're looking for the second group of people, the people who want to sell property, not because they need to get money from that property, but because they just don't want the property, they don't want the hassle anymore. Those are the people we can help. Now I've got a big tip for you. This second group of people, it's mainly made up of people who are already landlords. Landlords are some of the very best people to get purchase options from. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a good chance they're selling a property. They don't really need the money. They're just taking the money out and they are going to use it. They're going to put it in the bank probably. They're not going to use it. They're going to put it in the bank. Okay? They just don't want the property anymore. And also, landlords who've got multiple properties, they might well have heard about purchase lease options. They might be slightly more commercially minded than just a normal homeowner, and they might be open to some more flexibility, particularly if you can give them more money by doing an option than they could get with a conventional sale. Now I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the next video, video number 3, where you can get a competitive advantage by using these strategies in the current market conditions. But suffice to say, for the moment, we want to work with people who've got a property they want to sell, but they don't really need the money right now. So landlords are the very best way to get these deals. So let me give you a couple of tips. There are 3 basic ways we can get these deals. First of all, we can send out what we call a landlord letters. It's writing directly to people who are on the HMO register with the local council. They've got an HMO, they might have other properties as well, and we write to them to see if they want to rent or sell their properties. Look, most landlords won't want to do that. It might only be 5%, but it's the 5% we're looking for who are maybe tired or retiring, and we can have a great solution for them. Next, you can go online and you could go to places like Gumtree, spareroom.co.uk, where landlords are advertising the rooms in their properties for rent. And they're doing that because they've got some void periods. And if you look for the people that have the really bad adverts, they don't have great pictures, they don't have a good description, they're not going to be getting many people contacting them, thus they're going to have empty rooms. So they are struggling because maybe they've not educated themselves properly, they don't know how to rent things out properly, and they've got some void periods. And the idea of someone paying them a guaranteed rent might be really appealing to them. So that's the second group of people. And then the third group of people are people who are selling their property through an estate agent. Now the first 2, they maybe weren't on the market. It's what we call off market. So we've found people who might be interested in selling, and it's great to look for those 2 groups because you don't have much competition. When you go to an estate agent, obviously everybody can see that property's for sale. Now the thing that counts on your side is very often when landlords want to sell a property, they're over optimistic about how much the property's worth. They put it on for a high price. Maybe it's because the agents told them they can get a high price because the agent wanted to put the deal with them so they could earn the commission. But suffice to say, the landlord sometimes has an unrealistic expectation about how much their property is worth. Now, the good thing for you is not many people want to pay that high price. That property is going to stay on the market for a long time. And that landlord, they don't want the hassle anymore. They want to get rid of it. So we can actually structure a deal where they are getting more money than they would from a straightforward transaction, but actually it's less money from your pocket. I'll explain in detail in video number 3 how you can do that. Now, the other challenge you have when you're working with an estate agent, you won't believe this, but most estate agents have never ever heard of purchase lease options. And by the way, when we're speaking to an agent or we're speaking to an owner, we don't use that terminology. I'm just explaining it to you in that way. But we just talk about a very simple way of, we'd like to buy your property, but we can't buy it now. So in the meantime, we like to rent it and give them a guaranteed rent. That's the kind of simple language you use. Now, if you think about it, if you said that to an estate agent who's trying to sell the property for the owner, they are not familiar generally with these kind of transactions. They often don't like the idea of something that's new. They think you're trying to be clever. They think you're trying to somehow con them. So often they're a bit negative about it. However, there is a way of speaking to them so that they realize that actually it's helping their clients and it can work very well for the estate agents as well. Let me explain that. You see, normally an estate agent is paid when a property is actually sold. They get a commission, a percentage of the sale price, might be 1, 1.5, maybe 2%. But they only get paid when the sale happens. And if you're going to say, well, I'd like to buy this, but not for 5 years, they're going to think, well, that doesn't sound very good. I don't want to be paid in 5 years' time. I want to be paid now. Now, a normal sale might take 3 to 4 months to go through at the moment. And in the UK, 1 in 3 sales still fall through. So even if an agent finds someone who they think is going to buy the property, for whatever reason, there's a 1 in 3 chance that sale falls through, and then everyone's back to square one. The seller and the agent need to find someone else to buy that property. And by the way, sometimes properties, they're unlucky, they fall through multiple times. The seller becomes more and more motivated, the agent gets more and more frustrated, and they're worried that the seller could go to another agent and they get paid nothing for all the work that they've done because they've not successfully been able to sell the property. So we can speak to the agent, and there's a way that we teach our students to do this, where we actually explain to the agent that instead of getting paid in 3 to 4 months, the agent can actually get paid in 3 to 4 weeks, which is pretty powerful, I'm sure you'd agree. So often agents are very interested in this. And how does that happen? Well, we, as part of the deal, might agree to pay the owners a sum of money in advance to show we're committed, and some of that money can be used to pay the agents. So this is a way for the deal to get done in 3 or 4 weeks, which is how long you need solicitors to do the paperwork for you. By the way, you must always use solicitors to make sure you're protected and everything's done correctly. And the agent can get paid that quick. Now, you might say, yeah, but I don't want to put a lot of money in. Look, you don't have to put a lot of money in. If you were going to buy a property, you'd have to pay your 25% deposit, you'd have to pay your stamp duty, legal costs, etc. This might be a very small amount of money. Remember, we don't always buy these through agents. Sometimes it's direct to the owner, and you could pick up a property for as little as maybe £1,000, which covers your legal costs. So you could control a property for a very small amount of money. Now, there must always be a consideration. You must give them some money. Normally it's £1 to make this a legally binding contract, and we always do it through solicitors. Now, what I want to do is give you a couple of case studies of some of my students who've actually done this. And I'm going to start off by giving you the inspirational story about Josh, who was 17 when he secured his first HMO. Now, Josh came and did some training with us all about purchase lease options. He actually came along with his mum. His mum's already investing. She's a very successful investor, but she realized that this strategy was something she didn't know about, so she wanted to get the knowledge. She brought her son along to the training as well. So Josh was sitting there taking it all in. Now, the great thing about kids, they don't know what they can and can't do. As adults, we all have beliefs, limiting beliefs, oh, we can do this, can't do that. Josh just took it in and said, right, okay, I'm going to go and do this. Now, one of the things that I recommend to you and we teach our students is to tell everybody what you do. Don't just say, I'm in property. Well, what specifically do you do? I help people who need to sell their houses quickly, and I help investors get a great return on their money. You should learn that off by heart, and when people ask, tell them that's what you do. So Josh, who was working part-time in M&S Food Hall, what he did was he was telling his customers about this new hobby he had, which was buying property. And one day he was showing one of his clients around, a lady called Jo, who would often come to the store. She was in a wheelchair, so one of his jobs was to take her around the store and to help her get her shopping. And so just having done this training, Josh spoke to Jo and she said, how are you? He said, oh, I'm really excited. I've got this new business. What are you doing? I help people who need to sell their properties. To which Jo responded, she said, oh, well, actually, I live in a house. My landlord's he's been a landlord for years. He's thinking about selling up. He's told all tenants he's thinking about selling his property. I really don't want to have to move out my property. Can you come and speak? Maybe you can help him. So Josh, a bit nervous, went along with his mum to meet this landlord. And the situation was, this was a 13-bed HMO in Oxford. Now, Oxford is a very expensive place. A lot of people think, oh, you can't do options in expensive places. You have to do them in cheap cities up north. Well, that's not true. We've got students who've done lots of options all over the country, including expensive places like Oxford and London and Cambridge, etc. So in the right circumstances, this can work very, very well. So anyway, Josh was speaking to the owner, trying to understand what's the problem. And the owner explained, said, well, look, I've got this property. It's just a bit too much hassle. I don't really want it anymore. I want to sell it. But actually, I'm in a dilemma because I know when I sell the property, I'm going to lose all my income. There was no mortgage on this property. And the property was worth about $850,000. Now, Josh didn't have any money, so he certainly couldn't do that. And he wasn't even 18. He couldn't even get a mortgage. But what he could do was do this purchase lease option agreement. And so he agreed with the owner that he would pay the owner £3,000 a month. Now, the owner didn't have a mortgage, so this was pretty much all profit. Josh agreed he would cover all the expenses, which was about £900 a month. And this 13-bed property, when rented out, would give a profit after paying all the bills, $900, after paying the owner $3,000, would give a profit of £1,500 a month. Now, Josh is 17. £1,500 a month is £18,000 a year, and all he's got to do is look after this one property. This was an amazing deal for Josh because he gets this profit. The landlord's pretty happy. He's still making a great income, much better than if he sold the property, paid the tax and put the money in the bank, and making a lot more money, but he's got no hassle at all. So it's all about finding this win-win. Let me give you Oh, by the way, that wasn't a one-off. Josh has now negotiated his second and he's on his third option deal. He's now gone to college. He's probably the wealthiest student at college. Instead of going to university and coming out with a massive debt, he's going to come out with cash in the bank because he's got these properties that he can run very much part-time, giving an incredible income. Now, by the way, if a 17-year-old can do this, once they've learned how to do this properly, there's no reason why you cannot do this as well. There's no more excuses, I'm afraid. Once you learn how to do this properly, it's very possible for you to do. Let me give you another example. So Charmaine is another one of my clients. She's done our training. She's based in Kent, and she was looking for properties in southeast London that she could rent to students. There's a really good demand there. She saw this very large building that had a for sale sign outside. She thought maybe it was an apartment or something within the building. She spoke to the agent, found out it was the whole building. It's on a corner plot. It was a bit strange because it didn't have a garden, it had kind of parking slots out the back, and she found out it was actually owned by someone who owned a hotel just across the road. So they had a hotel, and this building was like an annex. So when they had an oversupply of guests, they'd put the guests into this annex. It was a bit run down, it wasn't in great condition, and the owner of the hotel was getting a bit old himself. And he decided that, you know what, I don't want to run the hotel anymore. He had hoped he was going to pass it on to his daughter, but his daughter just was not interested in the business. So he decided to sell the annex first, and then he was going to sell the main hotel. So the annex was on the market. It was this large building. It didn't have a garden, so it wouldn't really be suitable as a home. It was a bit too big for most property investors, probably a bit too expensive. And so it sat there, no one really knowing what to do with it. And Charmaine saw it. It was on the market for £900,000 at the time, which was a fair price given the condition. It did need a bit of a refurb to get all the en-suites into better condition, but it was a fair price. And Charmaine, having done our training, was obviously trying to negotiate and get a discounted price. But the owner was adamant he wanted £900,000. Now, it's really important when you're speaking to sellers of property to get a great deal, rather than just trying to get the best deal for you and beat them down on price. Instead, try and find out what's their motivation. What are they trying to do? Now, in this circumstance, the owner wanted to sell the property, and he had worked out how much tax he was going to have to pay, because when you sell a property that's not your own home, you've got to pay capital gains tax. He worked out the tax, worked out how much money he'd have left over, because his plan was this. He wanted to go and buy 2 brand new apartments that he could rent out. When he'd give to his daughter, she could rent them out through an agent, and then she would get the income from the rental, and that would be a source of income, because he really wanted to make sure he was looking after his daughter, and that was his plan. So that was what he wanted to do, and he needed the $900,000 to make sure he had enough money once he sold the property. That's why he wouldn't take a discount. Now, when Charmaine understood what he wanted, she suggested an alternative solution. She said, well, I'll tell you what, just help me out here. And she said, look, if you found someone to come along and pay you the full $900,000 right now, how long would it take for that transaction to happen? And he said, well, you know, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months maybe. And she said, yeah, that's probably about right. And then she said, and then once you've got the money in the bank, you've sold the property, paid the tax, how long would it take to go and find 2 brand new properties for you to then rent out? He said, oh no, well, another 3 or 4 months, I guess. So Charmaine said, so in other words, even if you had a buyer right now, today, prepared to offer the full price, which you don't, by the way, it would be another 6 months before you could start creating income for your daughter. Is that correct? And he said, yeah, that's about right. So Charmaine found a better solution, and that's what we want to do. We want to find a better solution that's a win-win for everyone involved. She said, I'll tell you what, how about I offer to buy the property and give you the full market price? I'll give you the full price you want if you give me the terms I want. He said, what do you mean? She said, look, I'm not in a position to buy it right now, but I will be in a few years' time. And what I like to do is give you a guaranteed rental income every single month until I buy the property. Now, he obviously said, well, how much will you pay me? So Charmaine said, well, let me ask you some other questions. So these 2 flats you want to buy for your daughter, how much will they rent out for? He said, about $12.50 each. So in other words, 1,250 per month. There were two of them, so 2,500 a month. She said, look, is your daughter going to manage them or is she going to put them with an agent? He laughed and said, no, she'd definitely put them with an agent. And how much would the agent charge? Oh, about 10% of the rent. So in other words, the daughter was going to receive £2,250 every single month when the properties are fully let. He said, yes, that's right. And then Charmaine said, is there a risk that there might be some void periods? They're not going to be let all the time? And he said, well, I suppose so. And then obviously her income's going to come down. He said, yes, I suppose so. So Charmaine said, well, I've got a better idea. Why don't I agree to buy the property in a few years' time at the full price you want? And in the meantime, I agree to pay, I contract, we do it all through solicitors. I pay you $2,250 every single month without fail. So actually it's more certain than just renting the flats out. And by the way, instead of doing this in 6 months, I can get it done in 3 to 4 weeks. Now, the owner didn't agree straight away, and it's important you understand sometimes these concepts take a while for them to sink in, but he eventually said, yes, I'll do that. And so they did the paperwork. Charmaine paid £1 for the right to buy this property at $900,000 in 5 years' time. So she had a 5-year purchase lease option. And in the meantime, she paid $2,250 each month to the owner. Now, when I tell people this, I know they're sitting there sometimes thinking, wow, that's a big amount to pay every single month, $2,250. Where do I find that money? Well, what I haven't told you is this property is a 17-bedroom ensuite property. Charmaine rents this out to students who pay £100 per person per week. So she brings in £1,700 rental income every single week, and she only pays $2,250 to the landlord every single month. She also pays all the bills. She's got someone who looks after, does all the caretaking, makes sure it's in good condition. And Charmaine, until she bought it, she's now bought the property, and it was worth about 1.3 million when she bought it, but she was making on a property that she didn't even own, that she didn't put a big deposit into, that she didn't have a mortgage on, she was making just under £50,000 a year from one deal, one property that she didn't own. So let me ask you a question. Would you like a property that's going to give you £50,000 profit before tax per year from just one deal? Would you? I'm sure you would. Or maybe you want 2 of them. Now, was that Charmaine's first deal? No, of course not. She'd done a number of deals. She worked her way up to it. But you see, these strategies work for completely new investors like Josh. It was his very first deal, to people like Charmaine who've already got a portfolio, and they realize instead of having to put a big deposit and get a mortgage, there are better ways of controlling property. And this is why these purchase lease options are a fantastic strategy no matter what level you are at in your property journey. Now, in the next video, I want to share with you how we can actually use this specialist knowledge and compete in a market where everyone's outbidding each other, and you can actually offer the landlord more than the asking price, but actually it doesn't cost you more. In fact, the house itself pays for some of the extra income you're going to give to the owner. So this is a new twist. I'm always innovating and helping my students. And in this booming market, so many people have been saying to me, oh, Simon, it's really hard to get deals. And I agree, it is harder. But if you can offer more money than other people, as long as the owners don't want the money right now, which is only a small group of people, remember, but when we find these people, we can actually offer them a better solution than selling to someone else who's just going to give them cash right now. So this is perfect for a booming market. And if the market turns, because no one knows what's going to happen in 2022, if the market comes down and it's harder to get mortgages, which happens when the market comes down, again, this is a great tool to help people walk away from properties that they really don't want. So with these powerful tools of purchase options and purchase lease options, it doesn't matter if the market's booming, it doesn't matter if the market's stagnant or falling. When you know how to use these properly, you could still make money. And that's what I'm going to share with you in the next video. Now, if you've got any questions, please do type them below. I'm going to answer just 1 or 2 quick questions that came up last time. And the questions you type in now, I'll put into the next video and answer them for you. So, a couple of things. First of all, what if my solicitor doesn't understand how to put these together? Well, it's very important you do use solicitors who understand this. Most solicitors do not. This is an innovative way of you controlling property. This is not something they teach them in law school when they become solicitors. So you need to work with solicitors who understand how to do this correctly. Because if you go to a solicitor who doesn't get it, well, either they'll say to you, well, actually, I don't think you could do this, and they'll put you off doing it just because they don't know. Or if they're a good solicitor, they'll say, well, okay, let me find out how it works, but you're going to pay for their time when they're learning it. An option contract, a standard one, should only cost about £1,000. I've heard of people being charged thousands and thousands of pounds, generally by solicitors who don't know what they're doing. So you do need to use solicitors who know what they're doing. How do you find them? Well, a great idea is through recommendation, word of mouth. Go to networking events, go to property events, and at those you'll meet other people who've used these strategies, and you can find out who they have used. We teach all of my students who they can use, but that's how you can find out completely free of charge. Another question people say is, well, what happens if I don't want to buy the property? What happens if I rent it for years? And what happens if the market comes down? Well, here's the amazing thing about purchase lease options and purchase options. You've got the right to buy, not the obligation to. That means that if you want to buy, the seller has to sell to you. They cannot sell to anyone else within the time period. But if you don't want to buy, you could walk away. Now, what happens? Well, I believe if you do that, you should give the property back to the owner in the same condition they gave it to you. That's only ethical to do, or even better condition, but you can just walk away. In reality, you might renegotiate with the owner and extend the term to allow the property value to come up. Or they might say, no, I don't want to do that, and just take the property back off you. But the point is, you can have fantastic cash flow, and actually buying the property is like the icing on the cake, because hopefully you're going to have some equity growth and you can benefit from that. So not only can you get cash flow, you can also get equity growth from property that you don't even own. So I'm going to answer a lot more questions in the next video. Please do type your questions down. If this has been useful for you, there's some social media links you can click on maybe. Share this with some of your family and friends. This is a different way of investing that most people are completely unaware of. So I look forward to seeing you in video number 3, where I'm going to teach you how you can get a massive competitive advantage by using this strategy even in a booming market. Now, before you go, I'd love you to encourage you to like this video, and if you've not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do subscribe to make sure you get the latest videos as and when they come out, and click the bell icon so that you get notified when these videos come out. Now, there's also a link below. I've got a lot more training about this particular powerful property investing tools. If you click on the link below, you can register to get the 3rd video and also a live training I'm doing where you can interact with me and ask me questions live on that training, or just listen in to other people's questions if you want. So click on the link below, come and register to get video number 3 and also to get access to the live online training. As ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. Hey, I do hope you've got massive value from watching this and the other videos on this YouTube channel. I've prepared some extra training all about purchase lease options, which is the most powerful tool you could use to control property and works with every other property strategy. You really do need to make sure you understand about this. That's why I put this extra training together for you at no cost. All you have to do is click on the link below the video, come and fill in the details, and you get access to that training. And I really think you should definitely do it right now. I've also lined up another video for you that I think might be interesting for you to watch as well. So until the next video, remember to invest with knowledge, invest with skill, and click on the link and come and join me for that additional training all about purchase lease options.